So good evening, everyone. Again, nice and wonderful to see you again. So I don't know whether I should greet Thanksgiving or not. Happy Thanksgiving or not. Maybe I should. Okay, everyone, happy Thanksgiving. And so we'll start with, again, as usual, with bringing our mind in the moment, in present, by watching the breath mindfully for a few moments. Then we can try to cultivate good intention, motivation. For example, by thinking, by coming here together, listen to the discussions, reflecting, contemplating on them. May all of this become cause and conditions to remind, inspire, to be able to do more retreats, so we can focus more strongly on our practice. And through the Dharma practice, so we can transform our mind to reduce and overcome all those harmful, negative, destructive, negative emotions. And in cultivating and improving those beneficial, positive spiritual realizations or experiences. From the realization of Guru devotion to the realization of normal learning, or the lumbering realizations. And completion from the realization, generation completion stages as well. And especially highest level of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, and wisdom, realizing emptiness. And having actualized those spiritual experience or realizations, so we can be more and more help and benefit, and not only help and benefit, greater and greater help and benefit to others and oneself. And may it be cause and condition to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can liberate all sentient beings from all their suffering, cause of suffering, and lead them to highest level of happiness. Okay. Sangye chodang toge sonam ma changche padu dani japho che dage jinso kebe sonam lola penche sangye sangye chodang toge sonam changche padu dage jinso kebe sonam lola penche sangye sangye chodang toge sonam changche padu dani dage jinso kebe sonam lola penche sangye So today's topic, I think how to do retreats. So I think, again, it's a kind of broad subject, and I will kind of talk and discuss a little bit at the very beginning, but maybe it might be better to open for people to ask more individual. And I think we had this subject because I think there were some cautions, interest or cautions regarding how to retreat students. Some people, students who are interested in doing retreat, but they wanted to know. So when we talk about retreat, generally in Tibetan it's called Tham. Tham is kind of, like a kind of creating boundaries, kind of to in order to practice more intensively, to dedicate yourself to practice more intensively, and so you try to, one try to not to see and engage into worldly dharma activities. Worldly activities and busy activities, and kind of isolate oneself, from the busyness and other activities that can be distractions. So, of course, because the more we see too many people, the more we engage in the busy with the worldly activities, the more our mind will be distracted. And so when you try to do any practice, any kind of form of practice, meditation, your mind will be carried away time to time by the distractions from what you have heard, from what you have discussed, from what he read, different things that we hear, from what you saw, those, due to all of that, then, different thoughts can arise in relation to what you see, what you hear, all of that. And so then, there's more distractions and unable to focus better. But when we have less of that, when we hear less, when we see less, all of that, then, your mind have less thought to get distracted to us because of what you saw, because of what you heard, or because of what you saw, and so all of that, So that is the idea is to create that kind of peaceful environment, more peaceful environment where there's less distraction, less noise, less interaction with others, thereby creating more quiet mental environment. So your mind is more quieter, less chattering with your different thoughts, and so therefore less distraction. Therefore, whatever you are trying to meditate on, practice on, you can focus better with less distractions. So that is actually what the retreat, and of course, there are many different kind of retreat. There is a tantric retreat, Lamrim retreat, and within the tantric retreat, there can be many different kind of tantric, depending on individual practitioners, or whether they are practitioner of highest yoga tantra or lower tantra, even the highest yoga tantra, whether one is practicing completion stage or generation stage, and so forth. And within the retreat, there can be very strict retreat, more relaxed, not as strict, so it depends on the individual, according to certain traditions, according to certain teachers, when you do a particularly certain retreat, long retreat, like 3-year retreat, in relation to some of the tantric practice, then certain teacher or traditions, require to be very strict. You don't meet anyone. Sometimes even food is passed through the windows. Sometimes they even lock you down. Like someone would lock for 3 years. From outside. And sometimes they don't even have a space to sleep. That one box. So you sit, sleep, everything is that one box. For that much. I don't think that is suitable for me. Personally, I'm lazy person, so I don't think that is suitable for me. But there are certain traditions, lineage, and many practitioners in the past, that is how they have done, and of course it required a lot of discipline, required giving a lot of comfort, to be able to sleep properly, and so, if you feel kind of tired, maybe you just take a nap like that, but doesn't sleep properly. So, and during the retreat, of course, since you can, then, you don't wash, you don't shave, you don't cut hair, so sometimes they call, retreat hair, the hair will grow up like long after 3 years, they never shave, and we are not supposed to shave, during the retreat. But in our traditions, Pabonga Rinpoche has said, for example, monk and nun, you should shape, you are, because of your vows, you are not allowed to have a long vows, even in such a retreat, So, so even you are doing a long retreat, you should shape your hairs, so you don't have to be so strict like that, So like that. So it depends on tradition, it depends on the teachers, and I think, and it depends on individuals, individual practitioners, what's kind of individual, how much they can handle, some people can handle more hardship better than others, some people cannot handle hardship so much. And with someone who doesn't handle hardship as much, and if you push yourself, you can get crazy, People can lose their mind. Sometimes there are cases when people go to retreat and then, they lose their mind, because you try to do too strict when your mind is not suitable for that kind of things, But there will be certain practitioners who can handle that, and if they can handle it, then it's quite suitable, They can handle it, and then it is a better. It can be better condition for certain, but for some, you have to be able to take on how your capacity, your ability, what suits you better than anything else, That is how I feel, So because we understand ourselves better, we understand our body, we understand our mind better, and how our mind would react in certain situations, and whether we have the right skill and tools and the ability to deal with those challenges when you make it too strict, So that is, I think, it becomes very individual in that way, I would say, When you do retreat, sometimes, there is a what they call a stone of the retreat boundaries, So when you're doing retreat, you create your boundaries, personal boundaries. You might, in your mind, you say, I will not go beyond these boundaries, You create your boundary. It can be small, big, And then they put a stones, so that anyone come by, they know that someone is in the retreat, so they wouldn't pass through that, It is kind of, and it is also for you to recognize that is the boundary. So beyond that, you wouldn't go. That is, again, traditionally, there are certain ceremony you can do, even you can't do the ceremony properly. In ceremony, you do the boundaries of 4 directions, there are certain ceremony, but even you can't do it, it doesn't matter, you can just, in your mind, you can create boundaries, that is the boundaries, but also, your boundary can be huge, One of my teachers, Geshe Lobsang Tsering, he passed away few years, his reincarnation come, and he was one of the main teachers in Sera, teaching the monks, one of the main ones, and he was also a previous effort of Sera. And anyway, he was imprisoned for 10 years in Tibet, in 1959. For no reason than because he was a teacher in the monastery. That was the reason was that, because he was a teacher at the monastery. So anyway, so he went through 10 years in prison and then escaped. After 10 years, he was released and then escaped to India. And he said, my teacher used to say, his renunciation was so strong at that time, if he had made, and he wanted to dedicate himself to his life to retreat, he said, he could have generated a realization very quickly. But he was ready to retreat. Then, when in the Sera, when they heard that he has come out of Tibet, they started writing him, we need you here to teach the monks, they keep on writing, and still he was not, he really wanted to do the retreat and the rest of his life, And then, the monks in Sera used one of his teachers, I think Tizan Rinpoche, to personally write to him, so then he couldn't say no to his teachers, And so he had to come back, and then start teaching in South India, And I think he's one of the main instrument. He was one of the teachers. So anyway, and while he was in Sera, while he was teaching, he had a strong wish to do 3-year retreat, And so he asked His Holiness to give permission to the retreat. And His Holiness said, you can do retreat, but you still have to teach. Because he said, no, the monks need you, they need you. And so while he was teaching, he did 3-year retreat, So I'm sharing that because my teacher, when he visualized his retreat boundaries, he visualized whole Bangalore, up to Bangalore, Bangalore is like 6-hour drive. The biggest is the capital of that state, But of course, he didn't have any wish to go beyond that certain area, but he keep in that because if he need to go, he wouldn't be breaking the boundaries that he have created, And he did have to go to the Bangalore, He got sick, and we have to take him to the hospital. He was in the hospital a few days, So he didn't have to break his boundaries, because he had kept that boundary big, And maybe he saw that was coming. I don't know, why he kept that boundary after that. And his advice is, so that is, and I think that kind of approach, I think is better. Also, like when you take initiations, for example, sometimes the teacher will say, commitment is to recite the mantra how much ever you want. They don't even give specific numbers. It is the individual to make the numbers. And according to some of my teachers, the best is to make the most minimum number and try to do many. When you make the commitment, you make one number, but you do 1 mala or 10 malas every day. The idea is when you make the minimum that even you get sick or something or not well, at least you can do the minimum, So in that way, you don't break the commitments. And I think that is the thing, while you try to do that, but you try to do as much as possible. And so I think that it gives you more flexibility and more realistic of what not know, And so anyway, so I think just some ideas, And when you do more kind of restricted retreat, quite strict retreat, then also you visualize people whom you are going to see, So people who would be in grocery seeing you or whatever, you need help, whatever someone who help you retreat, you keep those people in your mind, within your boundaries, and then you don't see other people other than those people, that you have given them. That is when you do more strict. But I think if you don't do strict, you can keep everyone but try not to see them if it's extremely necessary. you know. So again, there are different approach, you know, to be more strict or less strict, you know. Again, it is, I personally, you know, kind of like more not so strict, you know. That is my mindset, you know, the way my mind works, you know. Mm. So when, okay, and when you do retreat, you know, whether it's 1 week, month, year, many years, you know, try not to see, if possible, as many people as possible, you know. Try not to talk too much unless it's necessary, because when you talk, then a lot of things happen, and then that can disturb your mind, and your mind can get distracted, you know. So, and of course, try not to read news and other things, you know, that can again disturb your mind, and then again that can kind of distract your mind, you know. So therefore, you know, we try not to engage too much with those things, you know, whether it's 1 week, either it's 3 days, whether it's 1 week, month, years, you know, the less we have interactions, you know, and less interactions, less disturbance, less distractions, and less distraction help your mind to settle down and to be able to focus more onto the subjects, the practice, the meditation you are trying to do. And also, one of the advice is, you know, the retreat should be like what they call like the grain of, you know, barley or something. You know, what it means is the grain of the barley is in the middle is thick, and the two sides is smaller, thinner, you know. So what I mean, when you start the retreat, you know, you start with less sessions and shorter time. Okay, your session can be short and also not too many sessions. Then you still slowly build up. You slowly build up. You know, you increase the sessions from maybe 2 to 3, 3 to 4, or maybe if you start, you know, first day 1 session, and second day maybe 2 sessions, 3 sessions. Of course, if you don't have if you have only 2-3 days, then of course, you know, then there's like, but if you are doing longer retreat, you know, so then you increase, and then in the middle you have longer session and more session, and then as it is finishing, slowly again you kind of, you know, less sessions and shorter sessions, and the reason is that, you know, if you push yourself from the very beginning too much, you know, then maybe, you know, sometime our body and mind might not take it, and then maybe we might kind of give up easily, you know. So with the less session and short session, you enjoy it, and that will inspire you to continue the practice. That will inspire you to continue the practice more. So you do with more short. And at the end, when you are finishing, also you try to do that less and shorter, because again, because you are not too tired, you know, because you are not pushing yourself so much. So you are less tired. Your body is less tired. Your mind is less tired. And when you are less tired, you enjoy it more. And when you enjoy the retreat more, or the practice more, in the future, when you want to retreat again, practice more, it will give you encouragement, because when you think of previous experience, you have a memory of good experience, you know, instead of being very tired and exhausted, but you have a memory of enjoyable and nice. And so that will again give you more inspiration to continue to do the retreat more in the futures, because a lot of time our memory is the last memory, and the memory. So that is, you want to have a good memory from that. So otherwise they say, when you see the meditation cushions, it feels like you are going to vomit, because of, you could have that, you have allergy towards the meditation cushions, when you feel like, because you have a memory that wasn't so good because it was exhausting, very tiresome, and all of that. But it shouldn't be that. It should be something, you should have a more enjoyable memory. And to do that, then, less ending the retreat with less sessions and shorter sessions. So that is one advice that you find in a retreat, which we can try to apply, in any retreat, whether you are doing Lamrim retreat or Tantric retreat, we try to apply that or you are doing preliminary practices, retreat, whatever different kind of retreat you do, I think we try to apply that, all of that. And then another advice is, the importance, not only during the sessions. So, normally you do 4 sessions, if possible, at least 3 sessions, each day, 4 sessions, 3 sessions, so the session is the important, but also post session is very important. So whatever retreat you are doing during the post sessions, when you are free, when you are not in sessions, then you try to read Dharma books that is related with whatever meditation you are doing, retreat you are doing, okay? If you are doing retreat on Bodhicitta, then you try to read during those post sessions, whatever, if you need to, when you are reading Dharma book, more to do with that Bodhicitta practice and the retreat. If you are meditating on emptiness, then you try to read during that, teachings on emptiness. If you are doing on Tantric, whatever Tantric deity you are doing, then you can try to read on whether it's a generation completion stage is what you are doing. So basically, so that by reading it, it support your sessions, So meditation session should support the post-meditation session. Post-meditation session should support the meditation sessions. And so that what we do both is more kind of related, same subject. So when you are reading, you read the same kind of sessions, same topic that you are meditating or doing retreat. So that is what you try to retreat it that, And if you are also applying some other practices, again, you should try to relate with that particular whatever topic you are trying to do. And then also in terms of the food, it would be great if you have just 2 meals and you don't have to have the dinner. You can have a bigger breakfast and lunch, and if you don't have to eat the dinner. Because, if you don't eat the dinner, then it's more helpful for your body and mind. Your body is less heavy. So in the evening sessions, when you do the evening sessions, you don't fall easily asleep because your body is feeling too heavy, So if you don't eat, your body is more light. That also make your mind more light. And also it will help you to get up early morning next day, If you eat too much before you go to bed, your body becomes heavy, and tomorrow also it becomes more difficult to get earlier. And one thing what I've noticed is, when you don't eat, so much time you have. It saves so much time, preparing, eating, cleaning, everything takes, even if one person, it almost takes 1 to 2 hours, whole things. And then when you have extra 1 and 2 hours to do one extra sessions or to read more Dharma books on whatever retreat you are doing, or your personal other commitment, whatever you have, it gives you, or if you want to do some other preliminary practices combined with that, so it gives you so much, whenever I do retreat, whether short or long, that is what I try to, and I'm amazed how much time you have, feel like and so, and then if possible, not to have onion and garlic, if possible. It's not necessary, but of course, if you are doing certain, low tandara, of course you can't have the black food. But normally, but if it's best if you don't have to have the black food during any kind of retreat, again, it can be more fresh to your mind. Sometimes we might not feel the differences in our everyday life, but like if you have not eaten, let's say, garlic for many, many months, if you eat garlic, you can see some kind of, sleepiness or heaviness in that. Normally because we eat, we might not notice, but if you're someone who have not eaten for a long time, and if they eat, they can see the difference. Just like someone who have not eaten meat for a long time, if they eat, they can see the differences. Someone who has been eating, if they don't eat one day, probably they might not notice much differences, And similarly, that is also the effect that has. So therefore, if we don't, especially, if we can, of course, if we can, then those are more conducive conditions for more clear mind, and more, is a more clear, more alert mind, help in our meditation practice better. And so if we can use those conditions better, then that definitely that are helpful, So so it's better to go bed a little bit earlier and get early morning to do the sessions in the morning, early morning. Mornings, for most people, mornings are much better. Your mind is more fresh. By evening, your mind has started to become a little bit tired through the whole day, whatever we're doing, so your mind is not as, alert and fresh. So morning are better, that is what the most meditators have found, and that is their advice. And so if we can go to bed a little bit early and then get earlier, and and then do the first session early morning, So in terms of sleeping, going really early, getting going earlier bed and getting earlier. In terms of food, if we can avoid the black food, that is wonderful. And if we don't have to have the dinner, or at least, big dinner, then it's better, So all these are part of the retreat, that make the practice, the retreat, more conducive, It's not only just practicing meditating, but also those external factors can also make a difference and support in our practice and meditations, and then, and whatever you read during the daytime, book, whatever you read, that should be something that is related with the retreat that you are doing. So then that can support, during the retreat. and also during the daytime, so then we try to do something that's related and not to engage in other activities, that can be distractions. That can be distractions, and of course, it's when you are doing retreats, especially if you are doing longer retreat, whether it's a week, months, and years, there's a lot of sitting. Since there's a lot of sitting, you have to have the movement of the body, So, of course, people can do, frustrations, or you could do, yogas, Again, that is important so also to take care of your body in that sense, so that because we are sitting a lot and you can become stiff, so that can also make difference in your when you meditate on session, when you practice session, how good that session become also can affect by how you feel about your body, So then, and you have space walking, walking you can do while walking, you can do contemplation, meditation, walking meditations, you can do walking meditations, So basically, or you can do prostration, some body movements, not just sitting, you don't want to end up. I saw one documentary, I think it was in Ladakh or somewhere, a monk who has been in more than 3-year retreat. And I think it's in one of those very strict retreats, I think where you sit on the box, and by the time he finished his retreat, he couldn't walk, and he needed people to really carry on him, So I don't think that is what you don't want to end up like that, So it can happen like that. So it's important to take care of your body as well in order to have better, more focused mind. If your body is better and relaxed and so taking care of little bit of movement, whatever kind that can be, depending on each individuals. So that can be another factors that we try to bring in our retreat. So I think those are some of the and when you do retreat, morning sessions, if possible, you try to do extensive motivations, bodhicitta motivations. In the evening, you try to do the extensive dedications. So you start with the extensive bodhicitta motivations. In other session, you can do start with bodhicitta motivation, but you don't necessarily have to do extensive. You can do short. But the first one in the morning, you try to do the more extensive bodhicitta motivations. And you do dedication in each of those, but when you close each of those sessions, but the last one you do more extensive dedication because that is the last day. So that is another things that in retreat, that whatever different retreat you can expect of the retreat you do, that is, and especially in Mahayana and Vajrayana, then also it's good to start the morning with a Guru Yoga. It can be long, medium, short Guru Yoga. It can be very short Guru Yoga. And if possible, if we can start all session with Guru Yoga, is even better. One of the advice, of the lamas is if possible, the first sessions, you do extensive Guru Yoga Lama Chopa, If not, then 100 daily from the Tushidas, And then other sessions, since we don't have other sessions, you do the short bodhisattva motivations, and then Guru Yoga. The present Gandhi Tiba, who is one of my main teachers, his advice is, if you don't have time to do long Guru Yoga session, you can start with the Mixema, the praise to the Lama Tsongkhapa. It's just 4 verses or 5 verses, and starting that is a Guru Yoga. So each session, if you start with that verse, after the motivation, both to the motivation, you start with that. Then again, each session, you start with the Guru Yoga, So whether you are doing Lamrim or whether you are doing daily yogas, a retreat, whatever, each session you can, so that will be again another, and that can also be helpful in our everyday practice, whenever we do any practice in our day, any commitment practice, some sadhana, they start with the Guru Yoga from the very beginning, but if the Guru Yoga is not there in the sadhana, it would be nice to start the Guru Yoga. And the short Guru Yoga, as I said, is by reciting the Lama Tsongkhapa's, 4 verses or 5 verses of the praise of Lama Tsongkhapa. So that would be part of the Guru Yoga, short Guru Yoga, while visualizing Lama Tsongkhapa and trying to generate a strong, by seeing your Guru and Lama Tsongkhapa one, inseparable, you see that, and while you recite that, and then, try to generate strong faith, devotions to both the Lama Tsongkhapa, who is inseparable, your Guru, who is your Guru in that form, and then, recite that, and so that can be short Guru Yoga. Okay. So I think more or less that is all probably I have to add. So maybe I will open more for individual, where they might have more individual questions regarding personal practices or retreat that someone is thinking or doing, or someone has done in the past and they have some caution related to that, or whatever. So because I think maybe that might be more beneficial, I guess. So it is open to have any questions, comments, anything.
Does anyone want to begin? I'm going to ask a couple of questions for someone who couldn't be here tonight, and we'll listen to the recording. And if that's okay, I'll go ahead and ask some.
Yes, please.
Why are some retreats silent and others not silent? And another part of that question was, why are some retreats done solitary and why are some retreats done together in a group?
Okay. Regarding the first questions, why is some silent or not some silent? Of course, the best will be best will be if it's all in silent. Okay. As I mentioned, when you are silent, we don't talk. And when you do not talk, then there's nothing that disturb your mind and distract. Maybe we might have talked, if we are not silent, maybe we might talk about something political. And that can disturb someone and that can bother their mind and get distracted. Or we can talk about something that can be cause of attachment, attractions. And then again, during the meditation, that conversation comes, your mind started going there. So, so your mind get more easily distracted. And so that is less talk, more silent, the better it is, less distractions. Less distractions, your mind to carry away because of that conversation when you're trying to meditate, that carry away what do you have discussed about something, so that is one best. But of course, sometimes not everyone is able to be in silent. Some people find very extremely hard, and therefore that is why sometimes we don't have silent, sometimes individual can choose to be silent, but the organizer will not say everyone has to be silent, because there will be some people who find extremely hard to do that. They want to participate, but it will be very difficult for them to do that. Therefore, I think the organizations and the teachers sometimes, allow not to be silent, but like individually, if they want to be silent, they can be, and they are encouraged to do that. And sometimes also one of the reasons I even find here, even like just 3-day weekend retreat, some people find very hard to be in silent. They cannot come if it is silent. I feel very hard to imagine, but there are some people who cannot be silent with the rest of the group when they are in communal group. So, there is that part, and then there was something I wanted to say, and it kind of skipped from my mind. It ran away. It came and then it ran away. Let me see if I can catch it later. One of the things is because when we have retreat, so many people gather from so many different places, students. And so it is short time and they want to say hi, they want to get in touch, because that is the only time they can get touch, because they haven't been in touch for a long time. So they get excited and they want to get in touch, and they have only this short period to get in touch, and so that is also one of the reasons why sometimes the organizers are not strict with the silent. But the best, as an individual, the best is if it is silent, is the best. But the reason why I already explained why it should be silent, and also I explained why sometimes it is not silent, because for those different reasons, mainly for different individual students, So that is about the silent. Okay, about the solitary and the group, again, it is the individuals. Some people find solitary better than the group. Some people find better in the group than solitaries. I personally find better solitary. Because when I'm solitary, I have the freedom to where I want to spend more time. If I'm going through sadhana, where I want to focus more on, and I spend more time on particular section of the sadhana where I feel I need to concentrate more on that area. If I'm doing a group, then whoever is leading the group, you just follow that. If that person doesn't want to spend there so much, you just need to follow it. So in any particular, or whether even in the Lamrim, it's the same thing. Any particular places, any particular topic, subject, you want to focus and spend more time on that. If you're in a group, then you just follow, then you don't have time to just focus on that. That is one advantage doing solitaries. You have that. And sometimes when you're meditating, you have through practice meditation, you might have some nice experience. Moment or that, and when you have that nice experience, you want to experience and rest in that experience. You have that option to do. When you're a group, then you just have to follow it, Otherwise, you will miss the rest of the. When you have by yourself, you can spend as long as you can, and then you can continue after later, So that is. So there are those options, and also when solitary, depending on individuals, some people can focus without so much distraction for hour and a half, or even 2 hours. So if they can do that, they can do a long sessions, or if they are unable to focus for a long session, they can do shorter sessions. For how long they can be able to focus more. So again, they have that option. When you're a group, then you don't have option. It depends on the leaders of the group, how they are going, how long they are going to lead, how short they are going to lead, you know. So again, you know, you don't have that options, you know. And so that is the one thing, the advantage of the solitary retreat. But also for some people, they might find difficult to do solitary, especially if they have not done before, or even they have done before. It's just different mindset, you know. Maybe they can easily get lazy, you know. Maybe I want to miss this less. Maybe I'm not feeling so well, or I'm feeling a little bit tired. Maybe I can miss these sessions now, you know. I will do the next sessions, you know. And maybe next session you might still have some other excuse, you know. So again, you can kind of lose that. But when you are in a group, then you know you are more likely to put effort, not to miss that. And also other people give you encouragement, you know. Even you feel lazy, but then when you see others doing, then it gives you some encouragement to go, you know. Everyone's going, and then it feel like, oh, I should go, you know. So again, with a group, it can be encouraging, you know. It can be encouraging when you feel kind of a little bit kind of lazy, when you feel like, and sometimes if you don't know how to do properly, being in a group, it helps, you know. Then you observe, you see, you learn from them how it's done properly through that following. So again, you can learn from others how to do it next time when you do by yourself. In a group, when you are by do, then you know. And so again, when you have some in the group, when you have some kind of challenges, difficulties, there is opportunity to discuss and talk with them. If you have some challenges, difficulties, to have conversation, to discuss with other members, and maybe they might be able to help you, whatever is stuck, whatever is bothering you, whatever struggle you are going through. So there is that advantage as well. So I think it depends on individuals partly, you know, and sometimes we do in a group because, you know, our teachers lead in a group, and that is the only opportunity we have to do in a group, you know. And so again, it depends on different circumstances. So it depends on individual. I personally like the more solitary myself. That is my personal kind of, you know, yeah. So that is the why we do some do in solitaries individually, and why some does in a group. It also depends on opportunity, you know. Yeah. Okay.
Next question is, what is a fire puja, and do all retreats have them, or if not, which ones do?
Okay. Fire puja is done mostly for the highest yoga tantra. When you do what you call nyamba, is what you call or lerung, proximate retreat. I think that is what it's called. Yeah, proximate retreat. When you do that, especially with the highest yoga tantra, then you have to do the fire puja at the end, so that you can do self-initiations. Even you have done approximation. Okay, thank you. Approximations. Okay, approximation retreat. Okay, in order to be able to do this regarding the highest yoga tantra, in order to be able to do self-initiations, you have to do approximation retreat, including the fire puja. If fire puja are not included, you cannot do the self-initiation. That is part of the whole. You need to requirements. So for that, you have to do. If you are not doing, even you are not doing approximation retreat, still is good to do the fire puja. It's part of purifications. whatever mistake we might have made during the retreat in terms of our, concentrations, visualizations, recitation of the mantras, whether it's a pronunciation, whether it's sometime, mixing one or two syllables when we recite quickly, sometime reciting extra, whatever, whatever mistake we might have made. Also, we can do retreat as a way of purification, ending for the purifications. Mostly the Lamrim or other retreat, we don't have the 5 pujas, the Lamrims, we don't have to do 5 pujas at the end of the retreat, But also, if you do something like Vasasadava 5 pujas as a purifications, there's nothing hurts you. It doesn't hurt you. It is good, but it's not requirement. And also same with the Lord Tantra's retreat, and some of the preliminary practices, 100,000 prostration, 100,000 Vasasadava, 100,000 Guru Yogas, all of that, and other lower Tantra deities, you can do to all of them. You can do 5 pujas, mainly as a purifications for whatever mistake we might have made, but it's not a required, not a required, but approximation retreat in order to do self-initiation, then that's required. Okay, so that is one thing. Like when we do for the preliminary practices and low tantra practice, we can do the 5 with our individual those deities, or we can do Dojakato 5 pujas or Vasata 5 puja as a purifications, and also sometimes my teacher Gandhi Rinpoche, he says, even you don't do the even you can't do the 5 puja, at least you try to do the top offering at the end of those preliminary practice. So when at the end of you can do an extensive top offering as well when you complete it. So those are some of the advice. Okay.
Does anybody else have a question? Otherwise, I'll ask another one.
There is one question says, is it possible to rewatch this recording for educational purpose?
Yes, it will be posted on our website, and if you've registered, I'll send a follow-up with a link. And if you haven't registered, if you could put your email address in the chat to me, or to any of the hosts, then we can send a link.
Okay, so any other retreat, not retreat, questions?
I'm going to ask a couple of questions that I think will come up
Okay.
for this student based on things that you've said.
Also, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Also, I see there is one question, but okay.
What is a meditation box? And you mentioned that your teacher is the Gendon Tripa, and I think that if you could explain what the Gendon Tripa is, that would be good.
Meditation box is, like sitting box that is just enough to sit, not a bed. You can sit in it's a matter of the box, so there is no room to stretch your legs, it's just sitting that. So I think, so that is meditation box. As I think I saw them a little bigger than the meditation cushions, the big ones, some of them a little bigger than that. And Gandhi Tiba is the Gandhi Tiba is the leader of the Gelug lineage. His Holiness Dalai Lama is leader of the all lineage, Tibetan or for Buddhist lineage. You know, he is the leader, spiritual leader of all lineage. And each of those lineages have their own leaders. And Gandhi-Teva is the lineage of Gelug lineage. And normally, you know, they are appointed through your education. So anyone can become, there is a saying in Tibetans, if the child have the education, anyone can become Gandhi-Teva, you know. So it is not because of having any title, Rinpoche or not Rinpoche and all of that, but anyone can become, if you are qualified for that through your education, your practice, then anyone can. And normally it's like 7 years, each of them, you know, most time is like 7 years. Time of durations, you know, is 7 years. Yeah. And did I say something?
Yes.
Where should you start for a first retreat? Where should you start? I didn't get exactly what that means. Where should you start means time or date or place. If it can be.
I think that I think that Jan is having a hard time unmuting, but I'm thinking, does it mean what should you do if you've never done retreat before? What would be a good place to start? What kind of retreat should you do? Or is that along the lines of what you were thinking? She's shaking her head, yes, but I think she's having a hard time unmuting.
Okay. I think when you are trying to do a retreat for the first time, I think it should be very not strict, relaxed. Okay. You should have not too many sessions, you know, maybe 2-3 sessions a day, you know. The session shouldn't be too long, you know, not like hour and a half, 2 hours. It could be, you know, somewhere between 45 minutes to hours, you know, and maybe 3 sessions, you know, and in terms of the topics, you know, I guess it depends, you know. Of course, best is, you know, depending on what you have been studying and what you are, depending on what you have been studying, depending on what your inclination, what you are inspired to do, you know, whether you want to do a, you know, daily practice, visualization, and through by following particular sadhana, you know, or you want to do a lamrim, you know. Of course, you know, any lamrim topic will be good to do, you know. It can be renunciations, it can be bodhicitta, it can be emptiness, you know. So any of those, or it could be, you know, kind of concentrations, you know, just so again, depending on what you are studying, what you have been studying, and depending on what your inclination, your interest, you know. But I think lamrim is always good. Any lamrim topics, even you can't do the whole lamrim, you know, any of those lamrim topics, you know, renunciation, bodhicitta, emptiness, you know, that would be always good. And hand, I think did I show your hand going up before?
Thank you so much, Gisela. This question is not for myself, but I have witnessed my friend. She did the Nuna retreat. So, did I pronounce it correctly, Gisela? The Nuna.
Nyungne,
Yeah,
Nyungne,
yeah,
fasting,
yeah,
Nyungne
yeah.
retreat. Mm-hmm.
I did try to attend, but I did my body. I cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
Gisela, would you please explain why we do that to the body? That we're not drinking, eating, and talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nyungne fasting retreat is one particular practice for purifications. Can be intense. It is one of those kind of intense fasting purifications. Of course, there are many purifications, but it is more kind of intense. And there was a bhikshuni and nun, Gelonpamo, I think in Sanskrit, Lasmi, I think her name, following her traditions, and they from there, in relation to the Avalokiteshvara, and deity relating to. So there is that fasting where one day, you eat 1 meal or 2 meals, and then second day you don't eat and you don't drink, and for most people, I think not drinking is the most challenging, not eating might not be as challenging than not being able to drink, and even with that, it depends on teachers. Some are very strict and some are less strict. Traditional, depending on tradition, depending on lineage, some teacher will even discourage from your own slavia, kind of going in. Some wouldn't say there is no problems, and so again, so some when they are very strict, they will have cup, and when they have slavia, they will spit it, so they don't drink it. That is how strict they can become. I'm not that fanatic. I think I like to be a little more relaxed. So, and some there's just 1 meal the first day, some 2 meals, breakfast and lunch. There's then afternoon lunch, then nothing eaten. Some teachers, they will say just lunch, not even breakfast. So again, there is a different approach, how strict one can become. Being silent, I think I already discussed before. Okay, why we keep silent in our retreat is so that if we don't talk, then due to that talk, our mind gets disturbed or distracted and all of that. Not eating and not drinking is part of physical purifications, hardships. Of course, when you do purifications, of course, mainly is the mental. Is the mental, but also if we can also go through as a part of purification, not only mentally, but also physically through that kind of practice, prostrations and, being fasting and all of that, is supposed to be more powerful purification because you are using your body, speech, and mind, everything in the purifications. You are using them to go through a little bit of hardship for the Dharma, willing to sacrifice your comfort, willing to sacrifice your comfort for the Dharma, for the purification. So because of that willingness to give up that comfort and to be able to give up that comfort has, some extra kind of power in the purifications. So, I think that is more or less from the spiritual point of view, but I think now in medical point of view, I think fasting seems to be good for you too. Fasting time to time. I think maybe drinking part, I don't know that part, medically, whether there's any benefit of not drinking. That part I don't know whether there's any benefit, but the fasting part seems even medically now they are saying, fasting is good for you. So, but of course, the main from the spiritual point of view is that giving up that comfort, physical comfort, all of that, and to be able to give up that comfort, and the willingness to give up that comfort, and the giving up that comfort, and willingness to go through a little hardship, and so that, and also is training our mind, to become strong, that it challenges our it challenges our way of thinking, Before I think, first we might think, oh, there's no way I can live without eating. You begin to say, oh, you can do that. And next we think, oh, there's no way I can survive without drinking. You do it and you can see you can do it. So again, it can also help us to see a lot of things that we feel impossible, but when we actually do it, it makes it possible. And even to see it helps us to see some of our potentials, to our body and mind, the potential we have something, sometimes where we doubt, not sure whether we can do that or not, and so that I think there are a lot of can learn many things from that. So yeah, okay. Any others?
I have a question for you, Geshe.
Yes, please.
What exactly is lung? I heard that if you practice a lot or you meditate a lot, you develop lung. So
yeah.
Can you explain that a bit? What is that and how to work with this?
That means we'll lose your hair. That is why I've lost all my hair. Too much long.
I see.
Joking. Long is in Tibetan is wind, and generally long means wind and disturbance of wind energy. There's something to do with energies, and in Tibetan medicine, like all come through three kind of men. There's the wind and lung, bacon, tiba. I don't know the English word, and lung is one of them. So all the disease actually come from one of those three. Those are three men. And if you go further, then there are three delusion, poisonous, So anyway, but in terms of kind of energy, then it is those three energies. And lung is one of them. And so I think, in Western point of view, I think that it could be is like a kind of stress, when people started to feel pain here, from the stress, tired, because you push so much yourself, sometime in a retreat, your mind can become, if your mind is not flexible, and when you're all these restrictions and you are trying to push yourself, then that can lead to kind of a lot of stress, and that can have an effect on body and mind, where people cannot sleep sometime, and it could be kind of stress too, I remember, I had that little bit when I was doing Vajrasattva retreat, that is problem when you have deadlines, you know, and you wanted to finish in that deadline of certain things, and then when you cannot finish it or feel like you cannot finish it, then you push yourself so much that then that can of course I did few different Vasasada retreat, but one time, you know, I was doing and first 15 days it was good, you know. I tried to do kind of shorter sessions, you know, not a long session, shorter session, hour and a half, you know, 4 sessions, and I had plenty of time, you know, and I didn't eat evenings, you know, and I enjoy it. It seemed doing well, enjoy it. After 15 days, as I was doing the you know, and recitations and that, and I was just listening myself to the mantras. And because it's 100-syllable mantras, and when you're reciting quickly, sometimes it feels like I'm jumping, you know, seems like I'm jumping, you know, because when you are reciting like quickly, then it seems, and because it's so much long letters, 100-syllable, sometimes whether I'm not sure whether I'm ha 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 or three ha ha or just saying 2 ha or 3 ha's, you know, when you're doing, when you are so fast. And I was trying to listen very clearly as I was reciting very quickly. And I started to have doubt myself now, you know. I started to have doubt myself. Am I doing correctly? Am I really reciting? Am I jumping or not? And because when you listen, sometimes it feels like you are not jumping. Sometimes it feels like you are jumping, you know. So then I think, no, I feel like, I have to restart again, you know. So 15 days I've recited, I don't know, maybe 20,000 somethings. So I restarted from the very beginning, you know. And so that, because I lose so much time, and you know, and so I started to increase my sessions, becoming 2 hours each sessions. Slowly it becoming 2.5-hour sessions, you know, and sometimes the hour session become 3 hours, you know. So and I think with that, and then I know the mantra being long, and with all of that, then I think maybe then I started to have problem with sleeping, you know. I couldn't sleep. And so, yeah. And then, you know, my brother was doing the grocery shopping for me, and he bought in, and he was asking how things, and I said I was having a problem with the sleeping. And then, and he said maybe it was long. And since I was not eating dinners, and I was vegetarians, and maybe Tibetans, they call, if you don't have those enough, you know, then I guess maybe protein, you know, maybe something like protein is not enough, and all of that. So he encouraged me to eat, you know, more food, more butter, and eat the dinner. And so I started eating dinner, you know, and have a little bit more butter in my food, you know, with samba. And that did help a little bit. It did help a little bit. It didn't really went away completely, but I was able to sleep a little bit, even though I couldn't sleep very well like normal. But I was able, it did help, but it didn't completely, you know. And then even after retreat, I had that for a little bit. I don't remember, at least a month or couple of months. And then slowly I went back to myself. So that is sign of kind of lung, you know. It is, there is a I think combination of many things. One, I think, is a long session, stress. There is that part too. And I think need to finish that, and within that time, and so your your body is not getting as much rest because you are doing so much long session. Maybe your mind is also not getting so much rest because you are doing so much long sessions, 4 sessions long, you know, because it becomes longer and longer. You know, I started getting earlier and earlier, you know, start at the very beginning 4, and then slowly because to extend the session 3:30 and 3, you know, and like that, you know. That's how it began. But that was good experience for me. I learned from that experience. And next time, you know, I did Vasa retreat again, you know, other times, and so I learned from that sessions not to push myself, and to do a little bit more better and more relaxed way. Even with that, I was trying to do relaxed way at the very beginning with this, you know, very short, but not so long sessions. And I was enjoying that. But I think that when I started to listen and when I started to doubt whether I was jumping or not, you know, and wanting to be correct, that was, you know, and so that I think all of that kind of add up. Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah. Any? If there is, then we can have one last questions.
I think I've gone through the list of black foods. Can you describe what black foods are?
Yeah, the black foods that is mentioned in the scriptures: meat, eggs, you know, garlics, onions, you know, sometimes radish, you know, those. So those are mainly, you know, and of course, meat and eggs probably is related with the animal products, you know, life. Garlic, onions, radish. I think the smell is one thing. They all have very, very strong smell, you know, and especially when you eat them and when you when you open your mind with burping, you know, you can see how bad they are. Or if you are making gas, you know, it's horrible, you know. When you eat eggs, too much eggs, radish, you know, when you gas, it's horrible gas, you know. So it can be disturbing for others. But of course, there are many others in scripture. They explain how they came into something. But you know, I think one of the main things, at least, I don't know the radish. I think if you really do observation, you might be able to. But with the garlic and the onion, I do find when you do it, it makes you your mind a little bit unclear, kind of a little bit almost like sleepy, you know. Again, as I mentioned, when we use every day, we might not be able to notice much difference. But if you don't use for a long time, for a while, and if you use it, then you can see the differences. It makes your mind kind of a little bit kind of dull, sleepy. There's that kind of little bit of that energies. Some kind of something in that, and maybe that is why, you know, one of the reasons, because you want to have your mind as clear and as alert as possible. So anyway, so that is according to what I've observed myself in terms of especially the garlic and the onion. With the radish, I know the gas part, but I don't know in terms of the clarity of the mind part. I do know that when you eat it, even in the monastery or when we're a friend, you know, sometimes when you eat it, someone says, don't eat too much, otherwise you will make a bad gas, you know. So it's well known. Everyone knows that when you eat too much and if you have gas, it is a horrible smell of the gas. Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so then we'll do the dedications, yeah? Gyawadi Yududa Lama Sangye Dujone Doa Chikyama Deba De Sala Kweba Sho Chanjo Senjo Rinpoche Magye Bana Kekyo Che Gyawa Nyamba Mehai Kongle Kondo Bewa Sho Chanjo Chare Dawe Kore Shengang De Pendang Dewa Mother Jeren Sengwa Tenzin Gyatso Shabe Site Batu Tenkyo Tuzu Shangxin Shangwen Kiawe Zinjong Bewe Kunso To Choson Kuwe Lema Tutu Laso Duje Gwandu Shapen. Thank you. Do you smell my gas now?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
this.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good night. Everyone.
Sleep
Thank
well.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Take care. Good night.